Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Sonic Academy Nature. We're going to be taking a look at how to spice up your arpeggiated lines a little bit today. A couple of simple tips that you can employ to kind of just add a little bit of interest to your melodies when you are using arpeggiators in your tracks. So I'm going to start off just by talking about Anna 2 because it does have quite an interesting implementation of its arpeggiator. It's not your typical sort of, it can do the typical up and down, but it's not just a locked-in algorithm that you're using. You can actually kind of quite easily design your own patterns very simply with this. So I've got the default sound there. We just initialize this and just generate something that's a little bit plucky quickly that we can see what's happening in terms of the arpeggiator. I've got some pretty boring chords playing here. Now this is the first little tip here. I think most of the time I like to aim for having an uneven amount of notes when I'm playing arpeggiated lines like this. Depending on the settings that you're using, but they tend to sort of not fit into the grid, which is a good thing for me. 5 notes means that you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to fall on one outside of the single beat. It's the same way that sort of polymeters and stuff are interesting. You're kind of outside of that norm, that 4/4, which generates more interest for me. So that's an easy way to do that, is just to have more notes in the chord that you're playing. But now we've got this chord. Let's just move our Anna 2 onto this one. Okay, so let's turn on the arpeggiator here. And this is typically what you're going to have with most default arpeggiator patterns. Going to be an up and down or down. Pretty boring. But you'll see Anna's slightly different in that it actually has the ability to change the order of the notes that are being played. So currently the note order, you can wrap that as well. So they're kind of like, if you've playing less or more than what Anna has currently in here, it'll kind of wrap them around again. We've got 5 notes that we're playing into this. If you hold down a chord, it's going to be the low. I should bring this up. That's going to be our note 1, note 2, note 3, note 4, note 5. So as it stands, this up and down pattern is going to play them in order. We could decide to play 5 as the second step in our arpeggiator line. Let's go with 2, and then we'll go 3, and then we'll come back to 1, and then we'll go back up to, or maybe I should do this the other way around. Let's do that. Slightly more interesting. We'll do that one. Maybe come down again, and then up there, and then, you know, you can just experiment and try out different grooves. But you heard that up and down now. Let's play this back and take a listen to the actual feeling of this groove that we had now. Way more interesting. And it's pretty simple to do that with Anna. And see that one actually wrap back to the first one there as well. But yeah, you can play around with that. Now you can take this a step further, especially even when you're using just the straight up and down as well. This works too, to do this. Play around with the amount of steps, or in some cases the retrigger option that you have for your arpeggiator. So if you reduce the amount of steps, you'll see that now Anna 2, when it reaches step 15, it's going to run out of notes and it's going to basically go back to the beginning again. Which means that you can kind of do these kind of polymetric or polyons where it's not an even amount that's fitting into the structure, or the typical sort of 4/4 structure. Now we can play that back, and this is going to be completely different now. Let's go with a 5, even we're going to right back down to 5 there. So you can actually get some interesting ideas by sort of resetting that as well in real time. I'm not 100% sure if Anna actually lets you do this by, I think yes, you should be able to do this via automation. Another one I used to do this with quite often is Diva, which is a little bit more simple in its operation, but I'll show you just for the sake of this video. And I'm using a different skin here, sorry, but if you go to your ARP, you can turn that on. We'll set the time base to 16th notes. That's quite boring. We'll play 4 notes there playing. Let's go to restart that at 5 and take a listen if we play those same 4 notes again. Way more interesting. If we wanted to play 5 notes, we could go to 6. You can see every time it's restarting it there again. Change that same notes again with the 7th retrigger. Different feeling again. And same with this one as well. You can actually automate that mid riff to kind of add some sort of a bit of randomness to that as well. Cool. So let's move on. Another way that you can kind of generate this kind of randomness. Now, when I do a lot of arpeggiated lines, I tend to play it more like an instrument, you know, like a piano, rather than just feeding it chords like that. I quite like to have a delay on here just to add to the feeling for me. But let's take that Diva sound, for example, now. And I would record it in something like this. So outside of those chords, I'm actually adding in additional notes and also taking stuff away. Just you want to make sure that they're actually in the key that you are playing. But you know, if you were to play those notes back in just a chord like I was playing now, you'd end up with something like this. I could actually have to turn off the arpeggiator there. That's kind of what I was playing, which doesn't sound great, but if you're adding them at different intervals inside of a sequence, it does tend to work. So if you do have a sort of chord restriction thing in your DAW that can restrict notes to that, that's great, or via my keyboard I can do that as well. But you could just add those in at various different points. Let's just copy these down to our Diva one that we have here, just because it is a simple arpeggiated this, it's a good way to just kind of show you how this works. I'll just add in a couple of random bits here and there. I'm just making sure that they actually are all part of the same chord, but you can hear now it just starts generating these little bits of interest. There you go. Sometimes they won't even sound like that first one there, but that doesn't matter. You know, you kind of just play around with these until you get something that you like. We could play around here too with the... I actually like that one at 7 there. But you can hear there's that little bit of interest happening now. Now you can actually do that in reverse too, which is another good way to kind of play around with this. If you're not so great at adding in these different melodic elements, one thing that you can also try is to perhaps split up your notes into sections here. And let's say, let's do this for example. We'll go with just the second half. We'll make a copy. And we'll do the same with this one here. So we're essentially just kind of splitting those notes in half. And we'll do this one as well. And we'll leave the bass notes doing the same thing. Now you've got an opportunity to actually remove stuff in some places. But rather than remove this physically, what we'll do is, and most DAWs have this nowadays too, we will select these. And let's set a probability value for all of these. So sometimes you're going to get a chance of these notes not sounding at all, which is going to entirely change the feeling of the groove that you have and the melody that you have coming out of it. So let's just, but we get simple, we just use the operators down here and we'll bring this down not too far. Let's go to about 75% chance that they will sound. So we'll play that back now. Go. And every time it's giving us something different, we could play around with that even more by making these even more complex, the chords. and they're now also inheriting that same probability chance here, so we could maybe even reduce these slightly. Let's just mess around. It's really just experimentation with this kind of thing. But now you have some interest happening. See here now. And every time it's generating something new, it comes back to the beginning and gives you a slightly random version. Because they're not all getting that. Like these, for example, are playing all the time. These are playing all the time. There's still a sense of repetition, which is great. You want that. But there's these interesting little bits and pieces happening all over the place. And it's really kind of just changing up the feel of that line that we have. Now, one quick thing, another way to quickly change up the feel as well while we're here is to actually not change the actual pattern itself, but to change the focus of the pattern. So a really quick way that you can do this, and you can do this in Diva, I'm doing it in the Diva one now, but you can also do this in Ana 2 or most synths as well, is to use a Keytracking Modulator to essentially brighten certain notes, or maybe even shorten certain notes. In the case of Diva, you might want to do, let's say, key track. We'll get key follow and assign that to the cutoff here. It's the same pattern, but you're emphasizing certain notes now instead. Like in the case of Ana 2, for example. You could just, for instance, go here, right click and add key track. Same notes, different emphasis, which is really, really cool for sort of highlighting certain parts of this melody line. If they all have the same settings, can be a little bit boring, can also be a little bit hard to fit into a track. It becomes a little bit busy sometimes, so being able to focus the listener's attention on the high notes, which may be the sort of main part of the melody, and sort of rather push the low notes whilst not getting rid of them completely. They're just less important. They kind of carry the higher notes instead. And you could do this with various different things. You could assign key track to anything you want. Maybe let's do this one, yeah. And we'll just bring down the value slightly in the mod matrix here. Now you've got shorter notes on the bottom, higher notes on the top. So that's a good way to kind of just shift the focus around and change the feeling a little bit too. Now the last thing I want to show you is how to layer with arpeggiators. And you may have seen, if you've got any of the Arturia plugins, I think it's kind of introduced with SynthX. The new Jeep 8000V has the same thing, although not quite as complex as this one because it's only a single layer. But just to show you, they've come out with this really cool arpeggiator, and you've been able to do this in Bitwig for a while, but I'm just showing you this one as well because it's nice to look at to understand this. If you go to the Advanced tab here, you've got this multi-arp, which is essentially 4 different arpeggiators, and you can turn them all on. And you may wonder why that is a thing, that it might just be all the same thing, playing too busy. The real magic of this comes when you start changing up the time signatures of each layer and changing the settings. You can have stuff playing down and other ones playing up. In this case, with the SynthX, it's even nicer because you've got 2 layers to play with. So you can actually have certain sounds assigned to certain arpeggiators, and you get some really interesting interplay between these melody lines that you have. So I'm going to take a look at Bitwig instead, because you can easily replicate this inside of Bitwig. So we've got a polymer here, for example, and this could be any synth as well, but I'll use polymer for this. We've got node effects here, and we can just go to our arpeggiator, and let's just drag this in, and we'll build this quick sound here. For the sake of this, just kind of reset this. Actually, we'll use just the straight up one. So we'll have this one going down, and it's playing 8 steps. Okay, so that's all right. So we've got 8 steps, or five notes being played over 8 steps, and it's giving us a reasonably interesting groove there. But what happens if we decide to do something like duplicate this arpeggiator, and in the same way that you can sort of group together synths like you do this, or layers or effects or anything, you can do the same with note effects. If we group together this arpeggiator, you can actually just duplicate one here, have the same notes triggering the same arpeggiators. And let's go to the second one now, and we'll go with something different here. So let's have this one played down first. We've got one playing up. Let's go with one that's playing down. So we're going in the opposite direction, and let's maybe slow that down. And let's go with the 8th dotted, just to see what happens there. Some interesting stuff happening there. Let's go to an octave up maybe with that one. Some interesting stuff going on there now that we've got these two sort of playing different settings there. We could also change the steps amount for this. Let's also do one more, for example, here, 2. Let's duplicate this again. And this one will change to... let's go with 5 steps for this one, and this one we'll have playing in a different mode as well. So we'll go with up for this, and let's actually change up the notes. So we can actually change one down. Let's go one down here, and let's go 2 octaves up for that second one. So now we've actually got the octaves changing for this. Pretty interesting. I mean, it is quite busy. This, you'd have to fine-tune this to get it to where you want it to be. In this case with BitRig, it's also really easy to maybe bring in another polymer, for example. And we could, let's even bring in 2. So let's take one polymer here and just bring in a sine wave for that. We'll do a sine wave for this one. 2 sine waves. Pan one left, one right. These ones are just playing straight up chords now, but we can just easily bring across, let's take this one that we had here, this one that's kind of jumping around. We'll just add that to our polymer, or one of the sine wave ones. Let's duplicate one of these and just bring that to this one. We'll bring that on the note effects as well. This one, we will reverse this. I think we'll have that one played down. So now we've got 2 playing different directions with different notes and different sounds. And again, experimenting. I don't know what this is going to sound like, but let's see if it gives us something interesting. And we'll just change one of these to 6 steps maybe. There's some interesting stuff happening there. And let's bring the key track on this one too. There you go, that's pretty interesting, and it's all just being generated from the same notes. We've got the same boring chord progression that we had before, running through a series of different arpeggiators with different settings, and they all kind of feeding off each other, creating these sort of very interesting swirling melodies playing there. Cool, so I hope you guys enjoyed that and learnt something new. I will catch you soon here at Sonic Academy. Till then, take care. See you then. Cheers.